Hello, my wonderful English learners. Welcome back to the English Podcast Classroom. I'm so happy you're here with me today. If this is your first time listening, welcome to our learning family. And for all my regular listeners, thank you for coming back. You make this podcast such a joy to create. Today, we're going to talk about something super important: what to do when you don't understand something in English. And you know what? This happens to everyone, even native speakers. So don't worry if this is something you struggle with. You're definitely not alone. I want you to imagine this situation. You're at a coffee shop and the barista asks you something, but you didn't quite catch what they said. Maybe they spoke too fast, or maybe there was noise in the background. What do? Do you just smile and nod, hoping for the best? Or do you have the confidence to ask them to repeat it? Today, I'm going to give you all the tools you need to handle these situations like a pro. We're going to learn what I call survival English, the essential phrases that will help you navigate real conversations when things get confusing. By the end of this episode, you'll have a complete toolkit of polite, natural ways to ask for clarification. You'll know exactly what to say when someone speaks too fast, when you don't understand a word, or when you need them to explain something differently. And most importantly, you'll feel confident using these phrases in real conversations. The best part? These phrases are simple, they're polite, and native speakers use them all the time. Even I use many of these expressions when I'm talking to people. So you're not learning special phrases for English learners, you're learning real, authentic English that everyone uses. Are you ready to become more confident in your English conversations? Let's dive right in. Before we start learning specific phrases, let's talk about why this skill is so incredibly important. Many of my students tell me they're afraid to ask for clarification because they think it makes them look stupid or bothers the other person. But let me tell you something. This couldn't be further from the truth. First of all, asking for clarification shows that you're engaged and that you care about the conversation. When you ask someone to repeat something or explain a word, you're showing them that their message is important to you. Native speakers actually appreciate this. They'd much rather repeat something than have you misunderstand or miss important information. Think about it this way. If you're talking to someone in your native language and they ask you to repeat something because they didn't hear you clearly, are you annoyed? Probably not. You probably just repeat it naturally and continue the conversation. The same thing happens in English. Second, asking for clarification prevents bigger problems later. If you don't understand something important, like directions, instructions at work, or details about an appointment, pretending you understood can lead to serious confusion or mistakes. It's much better to ask now than to be lost later. Third, and this is really important, asking for clarification is actually a sign of good communication skills, not poor English skills. Good communicators know when they need more information, and they're not afraid to ask for it. This is true in any language. I also want to address something that many students worry about. You might think that asking someone to repeat themselves multiple times will make them impatient. While it's true that you don't want to ask for every single word to be repeated, asking for clarification 2 or 3 times in a conversation is completely normal and acceptable. Here's a cultural tip that might surprise you. In many English-speaking cultures, people actually appreciate directness and honesty. If you don't understand something, it's better to be honest about it than to pretend you understand. People respect honesty, and they want to help you succeed in the conversation. Finally, let me share something that might make you feel better. Even native speakers need clarification sometimes. We ask each other to repeat things, to speak louder, or to explain what we mean. This is normal human communication, not a sign of language problems. So please don't be embarrassed about needing clarification. Instead, be proud that you're brave enough to ask. It shows you're a thoughtful communicator who wants to understand and be understood. That's exactly the kind of English speaker you want to be. Now, let's learn the specific phrases that will help you do this with confidence and politeness. Let's start with the most basic situation. when you didn't hear what someone said clearly. Maybe they spoke too quietly, maybe there was background noise, or maybe you were distracted for a moment. Here are the best phrases to use. Phrase 1. Sorry, could you repeat that, please? This is probably the most useful phrase you'll learn today. It's polite, clear, and works in almost any situation. Let me show you how this works in a real conversation. Store clerk, would you like your receipt in the bag or in your hand? You, sorry, could you repeat that, please? Store clerk, sure. Would you like me to put your receipt in the bag or would you like to hold it? You, in the bag, please. Thank you. See how natural and polite that sounds? The store clerk doesn't mind repeating at all. Here's another example. Your colleague. The meeting has been moved to the conference room on the 3rd floor next to the elevator. You. Sorry, could you repeat that, please? I want to make sure I go to the right place. Your colleague. Of course, it's the conference room on the 3rd floor right next to the elevator. You. Perfect. Thank you. Notice how I added, I want to make sure I go to the right place in that example? Adding a little explanation can make your request feel even more natural and shows why you need the repetition.
Phrase 2. Sorry, I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that is a very natural way to say you didn't hear or understand something. Native speakers use this phrase constantly. Here's how it sounds in conversation. Friend, I'll meet you at Sarah's place around 7:30. You, sorry, I didn't catch that. What time? Friend, 7:30. You, got it, thanks. Or in a more formal situation, doctor, you should take this medication twice daily with food. You, sorry, I didn't catch that. How often should I take it? Doctor, twice a day and make sure you eat something with it. You, thank you for clarifying. This phrase is wonderful because it's casual enough for friends, but polite enough for professional situations. Phrase 3. Could you say that again? This is slightly more informal than could you repeat that, but it's still very polite and natural. Let's see it in action. Restaurant server. Today's special is grilled salmon with roasted vegetables and quinoa pilaf. You. Could you say that again? It sounds delicious, but I want to make sure I heard everything. Server. Absolutely. It's grilled salmon with roasted vegetables and quinoa pilaf. You. That sounds perfect. Here's another example. Bus driver. This bus stops at 5th Avenue, Main Street, and the shopping center. You. Could you say that again? I need to get off at Main Street. Driver. Sure thing. 5th Avenue, Main Street, and the shopping center. Main Street is the second stop. You. Thank you so much. Adding context about why you need the repetition makes the conversation flow more naturally. Now, let me give you a little practice. I want you to repeat these phrases out loud with me. Don't worry about being perfect. Just focus on saying them clearly and with confidence. Practice time. Repeat after me. Sorry, could you repeat that, please? Great. Now try. Sorry, I didn't catch that. Excellent. One more. Could you say that again? Perfect. These 3 phrases will handle most situations where you need something repeated. The key is to say them with a friendly tone and a smile. Even if you're on the phone and the other person can't see you, your tone of voice will come through and people will respond positively. Now let's talk about another common situation when someone is speaking too quickly for you to follow. This happens a lot, especially when people get excited or when they're talking about something familiar to them. Here are some great ways to politely ask them to slow down. Phrase 4. Sorry, could you speak a little more slowly? This is direct, polite, and gives the person specific guidance about how to help you. Here's how it works. Travel agent. So your flight departs at 6:15 a.m., arrives in Chicago at 8:30 a.m., you have a 2-hour layover, then you fly to Denver, arriving at 1:45 p.m. local time, and your hotel shuttle will be waiting. You. Sorry, could you speak a little more slowly? I want to write down these times. Travel agent. Of course, let me go through that step by step. The travel agent will appreciate that you want to get the details right, and they'll be happy to slow down. Another example. New coworker. Hi, I'm Lisa from accounting. I handle payroll, expense reports, tax forms, benefits enrollment, and I also help with the quarterly budget meetings. You. Nice to meet you, Lisa. Sorry, could you speak a little more slowly? I want to remember everything you do. Lisa. Sure. I work in accounting and I handle several things. See how understanding this request is? People want to communicate effectively with you, so they're usually very willing to adjust their pace. Phrase 5. I'm sorry, you're speaking a bit too fast for me. This is honest and straightforward. It explains exactly what the problem is, which helps the other person know how to adjust. Let's see it in practice. Doctor. The symptoms you're describing could indicate several conditions, including seasonal allergies, a minor respiratory infection, or possibly a reaction to environmental factors in your workplace or home. You. I'm sorry, you're speaking a bit too fast for me. This is important, and I want to understand. Doctor. Absolutely. Let me slow down and explain each possibility. In professional situations like this, being clear about your needs shows that you're taking the conversation seriously. Here's a more casual example. Friend. Oh my gosh, you won't believe what happened at work today. So Jennifer was talking to Marcus about the Peterson account, and then David came over and said that the client called and they want to change everything, and now we have to redo the entire presentation by tomorrow morning. You. Wow, I'm sorry, you're speaking a bit too fast for me. I want to hear the story. Could you slow down? Friend. Sorry, I get so excited when I tell stories. Let me start over. Your friend will probably laugh and be happy to tell the story again more slowly. People like sharing their stories, especially when they know you're really listening. Phrase 6. Could you slow down a little, please? This is the most direct way to ask, and it's perfectly polite. Phone customer service. Thank you for calling. Your account number is 7745-82931. Your current balance is $247.83. Your last payment was processed on March 15th for $150, and your next due date is April 10th. You. Could you slow down a little, please? I need to write this information down. Customer service. Certainly. Let me give you that information again, slowly. Customer service representatives deal with this request all the time, so they're very used to slowing down and repeating information. Practice time. Let's practice these phrases together. Remember, speak with confidence. Repeat after me. Sorry, could you speak a little more slowly? Great. Now try. I'm sorry, you're speaking a bit too fast for me. Excellent. And finally, could you slow down a little, please? Perfect. Remember, when you use these phrases, you're not being difficult. You're being a good communicator who wants to understand correctly. Now let's talk about what to do when you hear a word or phrase you don't know. This is completely normal. Even native speakers encounter unfamiliar words sometimes. Here are some natural ways to ask for explanations. Phrase 7. What does blank mean? This is the most straightforward way to ask about a word you don't know. It's simple, clear, and direct. Coworker, we need to prioritize the deliverables for this quarter. You, what does deliverables mean? Coworker, oh, deliverables are the specific products or results we need to complete and deliver to our clients. You, I understand now. Thank you. Doctor, you have a minor case of conjunctivitis. You, what does conjunctivitis mean? Doctor, it's an eye infection, also called pink eye. It's very common and easy to treat. You? Okay, that makes sense. Don't be embarrassed about asking for definitions. It shows you're engaged and want to learn. Phrase 8. I'm not familiar with that word, term. This phrase sounds very natural and professional. It's perfect for work situations or formal conversations. Manager, we'll need to implement a more robust infrastructure for our client onboarding process. You, I'm not familiar with the term client onboarding. Could you explain what that involves? Manager, sure. Client onboarding is the process we use to welcome new clients and help them get started with our services. You, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for explaining. Real estate agent, this property has excellent curb appeal. You, I'm not familiar with that term. What does curb appeal mean? Agent, curb appeal means how attractive a house looks from the street, the first impression you get when you see it. You, oh, I see. Yes, this house does look very welcoming from the outside. Phrase 9. Sorry, I don't understand what you mean by blank. This phrase is great when someone uses an expression or concept that's confusing to you. Friend, I think John is getting cold feet about the wedding. You, sorry, I don't understand what you mean by getting cold feet. Friend, oh, it means he's getting nervous or scared about getting married. He might change his mind. You, now I understand. That's a useful expression. Teacher, make sure you don't procrastinate on this assignment. You, sorry, I don't understand what you mean by procrastinate. Teacher, procrastinate means to delay or postpone doing something, usually because you don't want to do it. You, got it, so I should start working on it right away. Phrase 10. Could you explain what that means? This is another natural way to ask for clarification about concepts or ideas. Financial advisor, I'd recommend diversifying your investment portfolio. You, could you explain what that means? I'm new to investing. Advisor, of course, diversifying means putting your money into different types of investments instead of just one to reduce risk. You, that makes sense. Can you give me some examples? Fitness trainer, we're going to focus on functional movements today. You, could you explain what that means? Trainer, functional movements are exercises that help you with activities you do in daily life, like lifting, reaching, and bending. You, perfect. That sounds very practical. Practice time. Let's practice these phrases for asking about unknown words. Repeat after me. What does that mean? Good. Now try, I'm not familiar with that word. Excellent. And could you explain what that means? Great job. Remember, asking about words you don't know is how you expand your vocabulary. Native speakers respect learners who ask questions. Sometimes the problem isn't that you don't know the words, it's that you can't hear them clearly. Maybe the person is speaking too quietly for you to hear, or maybe there's background noise. Here's how to handle these situations. Phrase 11. Sorry, could you speak a little louder? This is perfect when someone is speaking too quietly for you to hear. Librarian. Whispering. The books you requested are on the second floor in the reference section. You, whispering.
Sorry, could you speak a little louder? I couldn't hear you clearly. Librarian, speaking a bit louder. The books are on the second floor in the reference section. You, thank you. Phone conversation. Hello, this is Maria from the doctor's office. Hi, Maria. Sorry, could you speak a little louder? The connection seems quiet. Maria, is this better? I'm calling to confirm your appointment tomorrow. You? Yes, much better. Thank you. Phrase 12. I can't hear you very well. This phrase explains the problem clearly and lets the other person know they need to adjust something. Restaurant, noisy environment. Server, would you like something to drink? You, I can't hear you very well because of the noise. Could you speak louder? Server, speaking louder. Would you like something to drink? You, yes, I'd like water, please. Phone call with poor connection. Friend, hey, what are you doing this weekend? You, I can't hear you very well. The connection is bad. Could you say that again, louder? Friend, speaking more clearly, what are you doing this weekend? You, much better. This weekend, Phrase 13. Could you speak more clearly? Use this when someone is speaking at a good volume, but their pronunciation is unclear. Drive-through restaurant. Employee, welcome to Burger Place. Can I take your order? You, sorry, could you speak more clearly? I want to make sure I understand. Employee, welcome to Burger Place. Can I take your order? You, yes, thank you. I'd like phone conversation with accent or unclear speech. Caller, I'm calling about the credit card application you submitted. You, I'm sorry, could you speak more clearly? I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Caller, I'm calling about the credit card application you submitted. You, oh, thank you. Yes, I did submit an application. Practice time. Let's practice these important phrases. Repeat after me. Sorry, could you speak a little louder? Great. Now, I can't hear you very well. Excellent. And could you speak more clearly? Perfect. These phrases will help you in many real-world situations where hearing is the challenge. Sometimes you understand the words someone is saying, but you don't understand the concept or idea they're explaining. Maybe their explanation is too complicated, or maybe you need a different approach to understand. Here's how to ask for help. Phrase 14. Could you explain that differently? This phrase works when you need a new approach to understanding something. Math tutor. To solve this equation, you need to find the derivative of the function and set it equal to 0 to find the critical points. You, I'm sorry, could you explain that differently? I don't understand what you mean by derivative and critical points. Tutor, sure, let me explain it in simpler terms. Technology support. You need to configure the DNS settings in your network adapter properties. You, could you explain that differently? I'm not very technical. Support, no problem. I'll walk you through it step by step in simple language. Phrase 15. I'm still confused. Could you give me an example? Examples often make complicated ideas much clearer. Business colleague, we need to think outside the box for this project. You, I'm still confused. Could you give me an example of what thinking outside the box means? Colleague, sure. For example, instead of just advertising in newspapers like we usually do, we could create a social media campaign or partner with local influencers. You, now I see. You mean trying creative, unusual approaches. Cooking instructor, you want to saute the vegetables until they're al dente. You, I'm still confused. Could you give me an example? How do I know when they're al dente? Instructor, Good question. For example, when you bite a piece of carrot, it should have a little bit of firmness, not mushy, but not completely hard either. You, that makes much more sense. Phrase 16. Could you break that down for me? This phrase asks someone to explain something step by step or in smaller parts. Insurance agent. Your policy includes comprehensive coverage, collision coverage, liability protection, and uninsured motorist coverage. You, could you break that down for me?
Could you break that down for me? What does each type of coverage do? Absolutely. Let me explain each one separately. To create a pivot table, you select your data range, go to the Insert tab, click Pivot Table, choose your layout, and then drag fields to the appropriate areas. Could you break that down for me? That sounds like a lot of steps. Sure, let's do it one step at a time. First, select your data. Practice time. These phrases will help you get the explanations you need. Repeat after me. Could you explain that differently? Good. Now, could you give me an example? Great. And could you break that down for me? Excellent. Don't be afraid to ask for the explanation that works best for your learning style. Now let's talk about some important cultural aspects of asking for clarification. How you ask is just as important as what you say. The right body language and cultural awareness will make your requests even more effective and polite. Body language tips. First, let's talk about body language. Even if you're on the phone and the other person can't see you, your body language affects your voice. So these tips are always helpful. Maintain friendly eye contact. When you're asking for clarification in person, look at the person's face. This shows you're engaged and interested. Don't stare intensely, but maintain natural, friendly eye contact. If looking directly at someone's eyes feels uncomfortable, you can look at the space between their eyebrows and it will appear to them that you're making eye contact. Keep an open posture. Stand or sit up straight, keep your arms uncrossed, and lean slightly forward. This shows you're interested and engaged in understanding. Crossed arms or leaning away can make you seem disinterested or defensive. Use a slight forward lean. When someone is explaining something to you, lean in just a little bit. This universal body language signal shows you're paying attention and want to understand. Nod occasionally. Small nods while someone is explaining show that you're following along. But don't nod constantly, just occasional small nods to show engagement. Use appropriate facial expressions. Let your face show that you're thinking and trying to understand. A slightly puzzled expression when you're confused is natural and helps the other person understand that you need clarification. Cultural politeness tips. Always say sorry or excuse me before asking for clarification. In English-speaking cultures, these small apologies are not really apologies. They're polite ways to interrupt or make a request. Don't worry that you're being too apologetic. Phrases like, sorry, could you repeat that? Or, excuse me, what does that mean? Sound natural and polite. Thank people after they clarify. Always remember to say thank you, thanks, or I appreciate that after someone helps you understand. This shows gratitude and closes the interaction positively. It's okay to ask 2 to 3 times, but have a strategy. If you don't understand after someone has explained something twice, try asking for a different type of help. For example, after 2 explanations, you might say, I'm still having trouble understanding. Could you give me an example or could you write that down for me? Show that you're trying. People are more patient when they can see you're making an effort. Phrases like, I want to make sure I understand correctly, or this is important to me, so I want to get it right. Show that you care about the conversation. Be honest about your English level when appropriate. In some situations, it's helpful to mention that you're learning English. For example, sorry, I'm still learning English. Could you speak a little more slowly? Most people will be
extra helpful and patient when they know you're a language learner. Timing your requests. Interrupt politely when necessary. If someone is giving you a long explanation and you're already lost, it's better to interrupt politely than to let them continue. Say something like, "Sorry to interrupt, but I'm already confused about what you said earlier. Could you help me understand that first part?" Ask immediately when you don't understand. Don't wait and hope you'll figure it out from context. If you're confused, ask right away. The longer you wait, the more confusing the conversation becomes. Choose your moments in group conversations. In group settings, try to ask for clarification during natural pauses or speak quietly to the person next to you if it's a small clarification. Different contexts require different approaches. Formal situations, work meetings, medical appointments, legal consultations. Be extra polite and specific about what you need. "Excuse me, Dr. Smith, could you explain what you mean by chronic condition? I want to make sure I understand my diagnosis correctly." Casual conversations, friends, family, informal situations. You can be more relaxed and conversational. "Wait, what? I totally didn't catch that. Say it again." Service situations, stores, restaurants, customer service. Be polite but direct. These people are there to help you, so don't hesitate to ask for what you need. "Excuse me, could you repeat those directions? I want to make sure I find the right department." Phone conversations. Always speak clearly and don't be afraid to ask people to speak up or slow down. Phone conversations are naturally more difficult and people understand this. "I'm sorry, this connection isn't very clear. Could you speak a little louder?" Remember, in most English-speaking cultures, people appreciate direct, honest communication. They'd rather help you understand than have you pretend to understand and make mistakes later. Now let's do some fun practice exercises. These will help you get comfortable using these phrases before you need them in real conversations. I want you to repeat after me and really focus on sounding natural and confident. Exercise 1, quick response practice. I'm going to give you a situation and I want you to respond with an appropriate phrase. Say your answer out loud. Don't just think it. Situation 1. Someone just told you their phone number very quickly. Your response should be something like, "Sorry, could you repeat that more slowly?" Situation 2. Your coworker used a technical term you don't know. Your response might be, "What does that mean?" or "I'm not familiar with that term." Situation 3. The person on the phone is speaking very quietly. Try saying, "Sorry, could you speak a little louder? I can't hear you very well." Situation 4. Someone gave you complicated directions and you're confused. You might say, "Could you break that down for me?" or "Could you explain that differently?" Great job! How did that feel? The more you practice these responses, the more natural they'll become in real situations. Exercise 2, tone practice. Now let's practice saying the same phrases with different tones for different situations. Remember, your tone should match your situation. Formal or professional tone. Repeat after me. "Excuse me, could you please repeat that?" Friendly, casual tone. Now try, "Sorry, what was that again?" Apologetic, careful tone. Let's try, "I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you say it once more?" Do you hear how the same basic request sounds different depending on your tone? Practice matching your tone to your situation. Exercise 3, complete conversation practice. Let's practice some complete mini conversations. I'll be person A and you be person B. Say your lines out loud. Conversation 1. A. The meeting is at 3:30 in conference room B on the 5th floor next to the copy machine. B. You say, "Sorry, could you repeat that more slowly? I want to write it down." A. Sure. The meeting is at 3:30 in conference room B on the 5th floor next to the copy machine. B, you say, perfect, thank you. Conversation 2. A, you need to recalibrate the machine before starting the next batch. B, I'm not familiar with that term. What does recalibrate mean? A, it means to adjust the settings so the machine works correctly. B, you say, I understand now. Thank you for explaining. Exercise 4, problem-solving practice. Let's practice handling multiple problems in one conversation. A, so basically you need to optimize your SEO strategy by implementing targeted keywords and improving your site's user experience metrics. B, you have multiple problems. Too fast, unknown terms, too complicated. Try saying, whoa, could you slow down? And I'm not familiar with SEO. Could you explain what that means first? A, of course. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. It's how you make your website easier to find on Google. B, now say, okay, that makes sense. Could you break down the rest step by step? Excellent work. Notice how you can combine different phrases and strategies to handle complex situations.
Exercise 5, confidence building. Finally, let's practice saying these phrases with real confidence. Imagine you're talking to a helpful, patient person who wants to communicate with you successfully. Stand up if you can, take a deep breath, and say these phrases with confidence. Excuse me, I didn't understand that. Could you explain it differently? Sorry, you're speaking too fast for me. Could you slow down, please? What does that word mean? I want to make sure I understand. Could you give me an example? That would help me understand better. Perfect. Remember, you have every right to ask for clarification. You're being a good communicator, not a difficult person. All right, let's review all the powerful phrases you've learned today. These are your tools for confident communication in English. I'll organize them by situation so you can easily remember when to use each one. When you didn't hear something clearly. Sorry, could you repeat that, please? Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you say that again? These 3 phrases will handle most situations where you need something repeated. They're polite, natural, and native speakers use them constantly. When someone is speaking too fast, sorry, could you speak a little more slowly? I'm sorry, you're speaking a bit too fast for me. Could you slow down a little, please? Don't be embarrassed about asking people to slow down. Even native speakers ask this sometimes. When you don't know a word or concept, what does blank mean? I'm not familiar with that word or term. Sorry, I don't understand what you mean by phrase. Could you explain what that means? Asking about vocabulary is how you learn and grow. Be proud of your curiosity. When you can't hear well. Sorry, could you speak a little louder? I can't hear you very well. Could you speak more clearly? These phrases help you handle noisy environments, quiet speakers, or unclear pronunciation. When you need a different explanation, could you explain that differently? I'm still confused. Could you give me an example? That would help me understand better. Could you break that down for me? Sometimes you understand the words, but not the concept. These phrases help you get the explanation that works for your learning style. Universal phrases that work in many situations. I want to make sure I understand correctly. Could you help me understand that? I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused. These flexible phrases can be adapted to many different situations. Remember these important tips. Always start with sorry
or excuse me to be polite. Always say thank you after someone clarifies. It's okay to ask 2 to 3 times if you really need to understand. Your tone should be friendly and interested, not apologetic. Make eye contact and show that you're paying attention. Be honest about being a language learner when it helps. The most important thing to remember is this: asking for clarification is normal, natural, and shows good communication skills. You're not being difficult, you're being smart. My wonderful English learners, we've covered so much ground together today. You now have a complete toolkit of phrases that will help you navigate any conversation with confidence. From asking people to repeat themselves to requesting different explanations, you're prepared for the real world of English communication. I want to share something really important with you as we wrap up today's episode. Learning a language is not about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to communicate even when it's challenging. Every time you ask someone to clarify something, you're not showing weakness. You're showing strength. You're showing that you care about understanding and being understood. Think about what we accomplished today. You learned over 15 different ways to ask for help in conversations. You practiced using them with confidence. You learned about body language and cultural tips that will make you even more effective. Most importantly, you learned that asking for clarification is something that everyone does, including native speakers. Here's what I want you to do this week. Choose 3 phrases from today's episode that feel most natural to you. Maybe it's, "Sorry, could you repeat that, please?" Maybe it's, "What does that mean?" Maybe it's, "Could you speak a little more slowly?" Whatever feels right for you, practice those 3 phrases. Look for opportunities to use them in real conversations. Go to a coffee shop, and if you don't hear the barista clearly, use one of your phrases. Call a business, and if they speak too fast, confidently ask them to slow down. Talk to a colleague, and if they use a word you don't know, ask for the meaning. Remember, every conversation is a chance to practice. Every time you ask for clarification successfully, you're building your confidence and improving your communication skills. You're not just learning English, you're learning to be a better communicator in any language. I also want to remind you of something we discussed today. The people you're talking to want to communicate successfully with you. They're not annoyed when you ask for clarification. They're usually happy to help. When you ask someone to repeat something or explain a word, you're giving them the chance to be helpful and kind. Most people appreciate that opportunity. Don't let fear hold you back from asking the questions you need to ask. Don't smile and nod when you're confused. Don't pretend to understand when you don't. Be brave enough to say, "I don't understand," or "Could you explain that?" Your honesty and courage will serve you well in all your English conversations. As you go out into the world and use these phrases, remember that every interaction is a success, regardless of whether the conversation was perfect. If you asked for clarification and got the help you needed, that's a win. If you made a mistake but kept trying, that's also a win. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. I'm so proud of you for dedicating this time to improving your English communication skills. The phrases you learned today will serve you for years to come in countless conversations and situations. Whether you're talking to friends, colleagues, service providers, or new people you meet, you now have the tools to understand and be understood. Before I let you go, let me remind you that the English Podcast Classroom is here to support your learning journey. If this episode helped you feel more confident about asking for clarification, please consider subscribing to our channel. When you subscribe, you'll get notified about new episodes and you'll be supporting other English learners who need this content. You can also leave a comment to let me know which phrase from today's episode you're most excited to try, or tell me about a situation where you successfully asked for clarification. I love hearing your success stories, and they inspire other learners too. If you'd like to review any part of today's episode, remember that you can listen again anytime. Learning happens through repetition and practice, so don't hesitate to come back to this episode whenever you need a refresher on these important phrases. Finally, I want to leave you with this thought. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and more capable than you know. Every day that you choose to learn, to practice, and to push yourself outside your comfort zone, you're growing as a person and as an English speaker. The phrases we learned today are just tools, but you are the one who will use them to build bridges of communication with people around the world. You are the one who will turn these words into real connections, real understanding, and real success in your English speaking journey. So go out there with confidence. Ask for clarification when you need it. Be curious about new words. Don't be afraid to say, "I don't understand," because understanding is worth asking for. Thank you so much for spending this time with me in the English podcast classroom. Your commitment to learning makes this podcast meaningful and rewarding to create. I'll be back soon with more practical English lessons to help you communicate with confidence. Until next time, keep practicing, stay curious, and remember, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be brave enough to keep learning and growing. Take care and happy learning.